Welcome to Mind Power, a Brains R Us program brought to you by Centerpoint Research Institute. In these special episodes, you'll hear thought-provoking articles designed to expand your mind, useful tips to improve your life, and the latest neuroscience research to help you tap into your fullest potential. Now here's Marc Gilson with today's Mind Power.
This week's article is Forest Bathing, How Shinrin-Yoku Can Rejuvenate Your Body and Mind by Marc Gilson. Here's a quote from John Burroughs. Nature teaches more than she preaches. Well, what can nature teach us about ourselves? Thoreau, Carson, Muir, Bugbee, Beeston, and the man whose quote I just borrowed, John Burroughs, there's a long list of very wise people who say that when we can become reverent and watchful of nature, it will teach us a great many things, not taught in classrooms. This watchfulness, this way of looking at what's out there, has an interesting way of showing us also what's in here. The more we gaze into the ocean, the more we see a reflection of ourselves. The more we spend time among the trees, the more we are reminded of our connection to them. The more we venture out into the deserts, the freer we are to think without distraction. Spending time in nature gives us a sense of clarity, peace, and connection in a way that just isn't possible among the constructs of our cities and towns. It's not that cities are bad, nor is it that nature is inherently pleasant or even reliably hospitable. Nature is not an amusement park. It can be exceptionally violent, and sometimes even seemingly cruel. But whether nature is benevolent or savage on any given day is less important than remaining open to what nature can teach us about life. That might bring to mind the hackneyed and overdone stories of desperation and extreme survival, or man or woman against nature, where someone tests themselves for weeks in the wilderness, pitting themselves against the brutal elements to hone their character, etc. Now, I do find these stories fascinating, and I think such experiences can shape a human being in some remarkable ways. But the truth is that most of us don't have the means or bravery or time for those kinds of risky adventures. Well, it turns out you don't need to risk life and limb or go on a month-long expedition into the unknown wilds in order to reconnect through nature. Have you heard of the Japanese practice of Shinrin-Yoku, which essentially means forest bathing? No, I am not talking about scrubbing your elbows and sudsing up in an outdoor bathtub. Shinrin-Yoku isn't an immersion in literal bathwater, but in the myriad of sensory pleasures of the forest. The green of the leaves, the crunch of the pathway underfoot, the dappling sunlight through the branches above, the wind fluttering through our hair. These are the experiences a forest bather seeks. There's no hiking involved with Shinrin-Yoku, no trail running, rock climbing, or rappelling off a mountain ledge. In fact, the less you bring with you and the less you plan to do, the better. Forest bathing is mostly just an act of being present to nature, allowing the sense, sights, and sounds to come to us rather than hunting them down. To some, even those who love the outdoors, that might sound a little boring. Remember, though, we're talking about reconnecting to ourselves through nature, not through GPS, ATVs, or standing in a river in hip waders with a casting rod. As fun as those kinds of things can be, forest bathing is simply about finding some nature, preferably away from power lines and power lunches, removed from the fabricated environments where we spend most of our lives. It's about setting your senses free, letting them tune into something other than cell phone notifications, AC fan noise, TV static, or the traffic constantly hissing by. It's about letting your eyes adjust to surroundings not cut in half by symmetrical concrete edges, reflected in panes of glass, or illuminated by fluorescent light. And it's about deeply immersing yourself within authentically natural surroundings. Here's another great quote from our friend John Burroughs. He said, "I go to nature to have my senses put in order." I can't possibly think of a better way to define it than that. Now, I'd heard of this idea several years ago. In fact, the idea of forest bathing was started back in 1982 by the Japanese National Health Program to combat work-related stress. So while it's been called trendy, it's not exactly a new idea. But to be honest, the first time I heard about it, I pretty much dismissed it as one more stress reduction fad. Life's not a walk in the park, I said to myself, and a walk in the park won't do that much to really improve your life. Well, I was certainly wrong about that one. A mountain of research has accumulated supporting the benefits of forest bathing, of simply going to nature and, well, just absorbing it all. According to the National Institutes of Health, studies have found an abundance of positive physiological and psychological benefits of forest bathing, including normalizing blood pressure, improved immune function, increased mental clarity, alleviating depression, chronic pain relief, the lowering of cortisol, boosted mood, and even better sleep. These are clinically documented effects, mind you. No pills, expensive treatments, or prescriptions necessary. A few years ago, I decided to try this forest bathing out for myself. Now, I live in Oregon, so getting out into nature is not that hard to do. And I've always loved spending time along the beaches or in the many forests nearby. Yet, despite the fact that I am surrounded by some of the most scenic beauty on the continent, I confess that, like 9 out of every 10 Americans, I spend far too much time indoors. So one sunny Saturday morning, I got up early, had my routine cup of coffee, and headed east out of Portland, toward the Cascade Mountain Wilderness. A couple of hours later, and a few turns off the main highway, I found myself near the Salmon River. Its headwaters located on majestic Mount Hood, the Salmon River has a little bit of everything: whitewater rapids, ice-cold mountain river flow, and calm, clear waters. I'd been there many times before, but this time was a little different. I was not hiking, I wasn't rafting, or picnicking. I was forest bathing. At first, it seemed a little weird to go into the forest without a specific plan or an activity in mind. I didn't even pack a lunch. I turned off my cell phone and never even snapped a single photo, although with so much beauty around me, it was tempting. I put my watch in my backpack so I wouldn't be tempted to habitually check it. Forest bathing, I've been told, was not about doing, but just being. So I had no goal or objective. I just walked along a trail that led down to the river, letting my senses browse through the many sights, smells, and sounds around me. I found a large rock along the river in a secluded spot, the ideal place to sit for a while and continue my forest bath. And then I just sat. Now, trying to write the details of the experience here isn't really all that important, but suffice to say that when you pay attention, full mindful attention to your natural surroundings, it will absolutely create a shift in your perception. After only a few moments of being there, I felt my body relax in a way I hadn't experienced in quite some time. I felt myself almost melting into the surroundings. I began to understand why they call it bathing. It felt like I was being cleansed of the grime of my everyday indoor-bound life. I was washing off the frenetic bustle of the city life and slipping into a kind of meditative trance induced by the rushing water and the warm breeze. Long before forest bathing became a thing, Henry David Thoreau said, "I took a walk in the woods and came out taller than the trees." That's exactly how it felt as I returned home that day. I knew that forest bathing was for me. Now, let me leave you with 5 quick tips so you can indulge in your own forest bath. First, you don't have to go far. Researchers tell us that even a 20-minute forest bath in your local park can have positive effects on your mental and physical health. Try to find a place without a lot of noise and activity, whether a secluded forest or the city park right down the street. Second, don't go with an agenda. This can be harder than you think. The less you do, the better. So no fishing, hiking, photography. The only plan is to be present to your surroundings as much as you can. Number 3, unplug. Now for safety, take your cell phone and water with you, and perhaps a compass if you're in unfamiliar territory. But turn off your phone and leave these items in your backpack or pocket so they don't distract you. 4, use all your senses. And one thing we often neglect when in nature is the sense of touch. We see things and hear things and smell things, but don't be afraid to get your hands dirty. Grab a fistful of mud and squeeze. Let your feet go a little tingly in a cold mountain stream. Run your hands over the rough bark of a fir tree. Get some dirt under your fingernails. Number 5, forest bathing means listening, not talking. So if you go with others, agree to spend some time in silence during your forest bath. Talking can just get in the way of your ability to perceive the many sensory pleasures of nature. Nature is many things: a teacher, a counselor, a doctor, a sage, and a healer. All we need to do is be present to it and in it, and of course, to protect it. I hope you decide to give forest bathing a try, and if you do, I'd love to hear from you. Send me a note at support@centerpoint.com about your forest bathing experiences. Thanks for listening. Until next time, be well.
This episode of Brains R Us is brought to you by the Buy HoloSync app, the only official app for HoloSync. Enjoy quick daily brain-enhancing meditations, long-form HoloSync radio stations for up to 8 hours of continuous brainwave states, easily access all of your HoloSync suites and courses, and listen to more Brains R Us podcast episodes, all from your favorite device. Head on over to holosync.app/podcast26 right now to claim a free 7-day premium trial, no credit card necessary.